Hello, guys, and welcome to Odds Premier League Match Day 22. We had great games this week, especially Nottingham Forest 1, Liverpool 1, and the North London Derby. Only Arsenal were able to win among the teams fighting for the title. Tom Rennie, hello.
Hello, yeah, really good week. Lots of good stories. Title race in the balance. 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 teams in it. Liverpool still look most likely, but there are points to be dropped all over the place over the second half of the season. So who knows where it's going to go?
Exactly. It's still very open, although the bookies give Liverpool only 1.3 odds to win the title, Arsenal 4.3, and Man City 26. Who knows? Maybe Nottingham Forest is the next Leicester City 35 for Nuno Espiritu Santos men. So, guys, let's analyze this weekend's games with Tom Rennie, with you. Of course, we want to know your opinion. Leave your comments. Tell us, where are you watching us from? And now let's go on with the show. Korea must be very cold up there, and great food also. Enjoy the food while you can't drink soju. Next, first game, Tom. Let's start in St. James's Park, Newcastle, Bournemouth. This is a very good game with Newcastle still on fire now in Champions League spots. Beat Wolves 3-0. Betting on Isak to score is almost a safe bet. Lately, 6 consecutive wins in the Premier League, but Bournemouth is a tough team, a tough nut to crack. No defeats in the last 9 Premier League games. They grabbed a great draw at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, tough game this one for loads of reasons. I mean, Newcastle, you mentioned 5 in a row. It's 9 without defeat in all competitions for Newcastle United. They look really, really good right now for various reasons. If we talk defensively, there's still no Nick Pope. 𝗛𝗵𝗀'𝗀's been in goal. But he's been making some great saves. 36 now, 𝗛𝗵𝗀, having a little bit of a end of time at Newcastle renaissance. We've had Sven Botman's return, so Fabian Schär's been able to have a rest. Byrne and Botman played in midweek. It's probably going to be Schär and Botman this weekend. Defenses look strong. Midfield, a brilliant unit, but offensively is where it's at. And Alexander Isak, 15 goals in the Premier League this season. Scored in 8 consecutive games, a brace against Wolverhampton Wanderers in midweek. No penalties in that run of goals as well, to show how exceptional he has been. Just such a great player. We speak about Isak every week for very good reason. He scores shots from distance, like against Liverpool, scores tap-ins, as he has done in recent weeks. A great second goal against Wolves in midweek, where he just was able to make everything slow down, wait for the goalkeeper to go down and find the top corner. Just a guy who could do everything. And if you've got a player like that, if your midfield's working as well as that, if your home ground is St. James's Park, there's no reason why you can't win every single game between now and the end of the season. Look, are they in the title race? Probably not. Can they get in it? Yes, if Liverpool drop a couple of points. So they could potentially challenge if Liverpool stumble, because I don't think Newcastle are going to have many more stumbles for the rest of this season. That could be real significant. Plus, not in Europe, less games to play, players coming back, looking really interesting right now. In terms of Bournemouth, their form has been really good, though it's 3 draws in their last 5. A very creditable draw against Chelsea in midweek. And doing it without players too. Semenyo has been fantastic this season. His goal at Stamford Bridge wasn't an outlier. He's been brilliant up front for them. But I do think it'll be an issue that Evan Nielsen's broken his leg, that Enes Ünal, who covers him, is injured as well. And they've shuffled the pack well. The manager, Iraola, is obviously creative and he's finding solutions. But eventually, for Bournemouth, the small squad, to not have going into this game Alex Scott, Adam Smith, Enes Ünal, Evan Nielsen, Araujo, Sinisterra, Senesi, Tavernier, likely all those guys missing. That's a huge amount of players missing for a relatively small squad. I do think that catches up in the end. And they were able to take advantage of some frailties of their opponents in recent games. At the moment, I can't see any frailties with Newcastle United, so I can only see them winning. Follow the form. 5 straight wins. I would say take the Newcastle win up front at 1.68. You then look at how you make some money. We went Newcastle win to 0, and we went Newcastle 2.5 against Wolves in midweek. Both those games, those bets came in. Very nearly didn't, with the Wolverhampton Wanderers goal being disallowed. That nearly annoyed me, but thankfully it was rightly chalked off a handball. So that came in. I'd follow that path again. I think Newcastle will score at least 2 goals in this match. 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐵 will score one of them. 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐵 scores and Newcastle win is 2.38. Newcastle minus 1.5 is a bit daring, but I think Newcastle will win this convincingly and comfortably. Struggling to see how anyone's going to beat them rest of the season.
Well, Isaac, the new Zlatan for Kai. Keep it simple, early kickoff, Newcastle to win, or both teams to score an over 2.5 goals. For Benjamin, he sees Bournemouth also in the score sheet. Next game, very good one. The leaders visiting West London, Brentford. Liverpool. Brentford is not anymore this strong team at home, although they were able to grab a draw against Man City. Of course, a great result. 4 winless games at home recently, and Liverpool also, I would say, it was good. The point they got in Nottingham with Jota scoring 2 consecutive draws. Tom, so this is a tough game. Again, they are having a tough round of fixtures recently. Actually, Liverpool.
Yeah, it was always going to be tough at points for Liverpool and for everyone over December and January. There's lots of games. There's midweek games. The schedule is all over the place. The Champions League is coming back again for Liverpool. They're always going to drop points. There were some real tough games in there, including Tottenham in the 𝐬𝐴𝐵𝗿𝐻, an additional game. Forest away might be one of the toughest games in English football right now. Man United raised their game for the classic of English football and all that. So, look, it was always going to be tough to come out of that period and still be top and still have a gap and a game in hand. I think they deserve a lot more credit than maybe they're getting, Liverpool, because it's tough to win the Premier League. They're not Man City of 3 years ago. They're going to have to scrap and fight for every single point. It's not going to be a procession for Liverpool. And maybe people just started to realise that. Look, in terms of Brentford, 2 things to note on them, which I note quite a lot. Number one, 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐵𝗿𝐻 became Brentford's all-time leading Premier League goal scorer in recent days. A massively undervalued and underrated player. I throw myself in that group of people who have undervalued him. A dead eye in front of goal, brilliant, intelligent running, never stops moving, always alert, excellent striker, 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐵𝗿𝗀. You combine him with the talents of Bryan Mbeumo, with the endeavour and brilliance and leadership of Christian Norgard. You put all of that together, there's so many great elements of Brentford. And I wonder what sort of season they might have had if they'd not had so many defensive injuries. Still no Ethan Bennett going into this one. There's hope, I think, that maybe Kristoffer Ajer comes back in a few weeks' time, maybe 2 or 3 weeks' time. So it's still a bit makeshift for what that defensive trio, if they go with 3 at the back, is going to look like. And it's worth noting the form as well. It was excellent, that first half of the season at home, but they basically played nobody. There was all bottom half teams and struggling teams. When they come up against good teams, Newcastle, Man City, Arsenal, it's just 1 point from those 3 games. So things have swung around. Of course, they're now picking up points away, including that thumping win at Southampton, their first away win of the season. So I do think the home form is over, but they're still a dangerous team to play, as City found out in the final 10 a couple of days ago to ruin my bet. Very annoying. In terms of Liverpool, a bit more on them. I think the only issue I've got with Liverpool, the midfield looks great. The defence looks great. I think Alisson remains a very good goalkeeper, even though I think he does have a mistake in him, which occasionally costs them. I don't think his saves ratio feels amazing in those opening 20 minutes of games. He seems to get stronger as the game goes on. The concern for me would be offensively. They have so many players who can score goals, but can they take Salah out the firing line at some point in the next couple of games? Can they get him a week off, 2 weeks off? Can they get a bit more from Darwin Núñez? There's some talk about him being sold in January. I mean, that would be a crazy thing to do, but his numbers aren't great. Diogo Jota is only ever a week away from having 6 weeks out injured. You saw his value when he came off the bench and scored the equaliser in seconds against Forest. They need Diogo Jota if they're going to be champions this season. So that's my concern, just finding the right combination of the front 3, front 4, and maybe finding a way to not play Salah for a couple of weeks. Looks a little bit gassed at times, Mo Salah. Maybe that'll stop when they stop having so many games. But, of course, it's Liverpool and they're in the Carabao Cup and the Champions League and the FA Cup. They ain't going to stop having games. So might need to find a break in there. In terms of this, look, go Liverpool win, 1.49. It's low. You've got to take it. I think you look at Brentford's goal-scoring record this season, 2 against Man City in that loss, 1 against Arsenal in that loss. They score at home in every game, bar Newcastle. I think they've scored at home this season in the league. So they will score, but Liverpool will score more. Look for Liverpool and both teams to score. That's at 2.38. And then, though he doesn't look his sharpest right now, take Salah to score and Liverpool to win. For Brentford, pick out 𝐬𝐿. And if you take 𝐻𝐿 to score and Brentford to lose, actually make some decent money there. Someone's going to score. If anyone does, it's probably him.
Well, Brentford has the highest tally, the highest goal tally at home, 29 goals scored in their stadium, more than Tottenham, 26 is the second one. So, indeed, they can score when they are playing at home. Liverpool, 28 goals scored away, so we might see a lot of goals in this game. For this reason, Benjamin is going for Liverpool to win and both teams to score. From Italy, I think he is writing us. And Rollins is seeing a draw, a weird game. This one, well, it's tricky for sure, and the schedule is quite difficult for Liverpool. Luckily for them, they can rest some players in the Champions League because most likely they are going to be qualified directly for the next round and they don't have to play the playoffs. Next game is Leicester City Fulham. Normally we should go all gas here with Fulham. Odds are actually good, around 2, with Leicester City looking really bad. Another defeat against Crystal Palace. They are going down, as Tom Rennie predicted, perhaps in October, 6 consecutive defeats now for them. But my only concern, Tom, and I told you sometimes, is like a Fulham try, or usually they screw up when they are playing against these minor teams.
Yeah, that's true. They were described to me yesterday by a Fulham fan as the Robin Hood of the Premier League. They steal from the rich and give to the poor. And I thought that was quite fun because that has been the case. I mean, I went to the Fulham-West Ham game on Tuesday, and they were great, Fulham, in lots of ways. They played really well, but they weren't effective in front of goal. And it cost them in the end. That was, I think, their first defeat in 8 or 9 games. So still, overall, very good season, very good record. But they're not converting performances into victories, and that'll be the concern. But back to Leicester. I mean, look, was Steve Cooper the right hire? Probably not, because the fans were never going to take to a former Nottingham Forest manager. Very different to Maresca, who had just taken them up from the Championship. But to replace Steve Cooper with Ruud van Nistelrooy is an all-time bonehead move. Like, I'm not trying to disrespect Ruud van Nistelrooy here, but he's got no managerial experience. And this Leicester job, keeping them in the league after how many games was it? 10 or whatever, 10, 12 games. One of the toughest jobs in football. Like, this is why there are a group of select managers over the years that have been brought into jobs like this. Sam Allardyce, David Moyes, Sean Dyche, whatever, because they're good at it. Because it's hard. It's so hard to keep these teams in the league. And we have some fun with these guys for obvious reasons. But to have turned Leicester into a team who could have stayed in the Premier League, they needed to fight for every single point. Grit, luck, ugly wins. It's what Nottingham Forest did when they brought in Nuno, right? Before they've gone on to do as good as they've been doing since his appointment. To bring in Ruud van Nistelrooy, I don't see any sign that this Leicester team can grind out points. They were so open against Crystal Palace. We predicted the Palace win, exactly what we got. They haven't won in how many games now? 5, I think, in the league. I think 1 win under Van Nistelrooy was the win against West Ham, where they shouldn't have won that game, frankly. Lost against Villa, lost against City, lost against Liverpool, lost against Palace. Can't score goals, can't keep clean sheets, all of it. Just a total mess. The squad's not good enough. The manager's not good enough, and they will be relegated this season. My only concern here, in terms of Fulham, is will they convert the chances when they come? Raul Jimenez got a little bit dry. Alex Iwobi scored twice against West Ham on Tuesday, but they were both accidental goals. Brilliant crosses, but they weren't intended to go in. Maybe Fabianski could have done better. They don't convert enough. If Fulham scored the opening goal in this game, a bit like Crystal Palace in midweek, I think that's all she wrote. That's what I'll go for here. Fulham, really good record beyond the West Ham game in the last couple of months. They've scored, I think, 12 in their last 5. Won their last 3 against Leicester City. I think they win this game. I'd go carbon copy of Crystal Palace. Take the Fulham win. Take Fulham win to 0. Don't bet on Leicester in a month of Sundays. And if you're going to pick out a player, I think Alex Iwobi, fantastic. You know, scored on Tuesday. I think he'll play again here. Looks a bit knackered, but I think he'll start. Iwobi scores and Fulham win. That's the player I pick out. But Fulham win comfortably. I think an identical game to Palace.
Okay, everyone is going for Fulham to win. We have Hassan or Viper going for, or Benjamin, for Fulham to win, or for goals in the case of Mills. And we have Gundal from Hong Kong. great food also in Hong Kong, I must say. Well, Tom, your team, West Ham against Crystal Palace, first win for Graham Potter against Fulham. And my question is if things have changed in this little gap time with Potter.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, no one could understand a word 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝐻 was saying. He was changing his tactics from 1 minute to the next. He was clearly training them on one thing and they were playing in another way. I think the players looked confused and they looked all over the place. And Graham Potter has come in a short space of time. And I think he's given them simple instruction. He's not asking players to do 5 jobs at once. He's asking the right back to play right back. He's asking the wingers to play on the wing. He's asking Edson Alvarez, great example, been West Ham's worst player this season, arguably, because 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝐻 tried to play him in this weird, deep-lying Lothar Matthäus at the end of his career sweeper role. And Potter was like, play midfield. And he plays in midfield like it was last season, pressed up on Pereira on Tuesday, forced a mistake, West Ham 1-0 up. My only concern about West Ham here, and I wonder what they could have done if Graham Potter had an attack going into the game in midweek. And this one, Somerville likely missing, huge blow there. He would have been really important in these games. Somerville. Bowen remains out for another few weeks. Antonio, we know, broken his leg. Füllkrug hamstring injury. They are short of an offense here. And Paqueta played well on Tuesday, but he's not a striker. Kudus has offered almost nothing for weeks and weeks and weeks now. He came off on 50 minutes or so against Fulham in midweek because he could barely move. Put a shift in against Villa, to be fair, but offensively, numbers-wise, he's not contributing. So my only concern here is about West Ham offensively, but they did look better defensively. I don't like Mavropanos. I don't think Kilman's a great defender, but I do think they look like they've got more cover in front of them now because Potter seems to know how to organise a midfield where 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝐻 was utterly clueless. So I think West Ham are going to be in the game, whereas with 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝐻 in charge, I don't think they would be. In terms of Crystal Palace, brilliant little run of form they're on right now. A bit like what West Ham are going to try and do. They just stay in the game. Against Bournemouth away, they stayed in the game. Were they great that day? I don't think they were. Against Southampton, it was a real tough, stodgy, ugly performance, but found a way to win that match. Against Chelsea, found a way to get a draw. And you saw against Leicester, Leicester had their chances in a pretty open game of football, but once they'd scored the first, you never felt like Crystal Palace were going to give it away. So a really interesting and even game of football, this, by two teams on broadly similar form. West Ham has scored 6 in 5. That's a similar record to Crystal Palace. Palace haven't lost in 5. West Ham, 2 victories in their last 4. Those 2 games were against City and Liverpool. So beyond that, broadly, the form has been better. I think screams draw at 3.5. I'd absolutely take that. I think West Ham are going to be quite deep. They're going to be quite low block. Palace are going to struggle to break that down. Something West Ham maybe should have done more this season. If you were going to pick a winner, I'd probably just shade for West Ham and a narrow victory. Take your group bet, 1-0, 2-0, 2-1. West Ham win this. They got 29 points. That's basically season over. And then Graham Potter can really start experimenting and working and training and try and build for next season. If you take Palace, exactly the same thing. Narrow victory, low scoring, under 3.5 goals in this game. But I would just shade for the draw first and West Ham second.
They have a great record away. Crystal Palace against West Ham. I always remember you saying this, and indeed, they usually don't lose both teams to score. For many people, is the bet or a draw. The draw is a really good option for this game. Is one of those that screams draw. Well, and the late kickoff on Saturday, what a game. Arsenal, Aston Villa. Unai Emery ruined last season's hopes of title to Arsenal and to Arteta. Remember, Villa won in this stadium at the Emirates, and now they are also back in track, beating Everton, beating Leicester, only 3 points away from the Champions League spots. Therefore, they are very dangerous. Arsenal only 4 points away from Liverpool after coming back in the derby against Tottenham, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal feel a bit like they're burning the candle at both ends right now, and something might need to give in terms of transfers this January. They are a couple of players short. The injuries keep on mounting up. Ben White's not back, but Bukayo Saka remains out. His understudy, Nwaneri, is out. Jesus likely to miss the rest of this season. Calafiori and Tomiyasu both missing as well. So he's always chopping and changing. He's always trying to find who's available to him, and he's also trying to rest players. So Partey is out, then Rice is out, then Jorginho is out. He's tried to manage a tough period, Arteta, and to varying degrees of success. I think that you could see he got it wrong in the game against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup. I think it was a real fortunate victory against Tottenham in midweek. Could have gone either way. I know Declan Rice said they could have scored 10, but they didn't create many chances, Arsenal, and it was a pretty weak Tottenham. They just about scraped by. So, look, I'm not being overly critical here. I think Arteta needs resources. And if they want to be champions this year, I mean, look at what Liverpool can do. We spoke about it earlier on. If they wanted to take Salah out, they probably won't. But if they wanted to, they could start Jota, Nunez and Luis Diaz and bring on 𝐿𝐴𝐴 and Salah later. With Jesus injured here, what's the option? Kai Havertz? Okay, great. What if Havertz is not doing it? Well, then no one. The cupboard is bare. So I think Arteta needs backing. And I think he needs, if not the striker that we're all talking about, if they had that striker, would they win the league? I think a striker might do at the moment for Arsenal, someone who can just run some minutes and do a job. And I think that might well cost them in games like this. Still lost their world-class player in Bukayo Saka, though I do think that Martin Ødegaard has clearly returned to form after being visibly unwell in recent games. When he came on against Brighton, he looked like he'd been crammed full of Sudafed, then kicked out for the last 10 minutes. He just wasn't ready to play. So concerns there. Whatever way you look with Arsenal, they're going to win narrow. They're not really pumping too many teams this season. A couple of times it's happened, but in general, it's been 2-1, 3-1, 1-1 draws, 1-0 victories. It's been pretty narrow. In terms of Aston Villa, not the away team of last season, but I think it's telling right now in this 3 wins in a row run in all competitions, no defeats in 4 in all comps. Champions League's gone. It's coming back, but now they're playing 1 game regularly as opposed to an additional game with a small squad. It's no surprise to me that they've started turning it around. Ollie Watkins, 9 goals this season, scored the winner against Everton in midweek, getting goals in midweek in creativity from him as well. Morgan Rogers scored, I think, the winner against West Ham or the leveller, but certainly one of the 2 goals. You know, all these players that are so crucial, but aren't maybe quite ready to play Champions League football and then Premier League football, then Champions League football. Without that, they've all looked pretty good. And they're hard-fought victories too. They didn't cruise past Leicester, West Ham or Everton, but found a way to win. The concern is still defensively. Pau Torres, I think, is still going to miss this one. Diego Carlos remains out. That leaves you Tyrone Mings, who looks wobbly since coming back, and 𝐬𝐿𝐴𝐴 Konsa. I'm not sure that pair is really working right now. And Digne and Cash, better offensively than defensively. So we'll have to see how that lineup goes. But they're very threatening, Aston Villa. I think this might come down to who's got the most energy. And there's every possibility Aston Villa might have the most energy. I think low scoring. I'd probably look at a draw here first and foremost at 4.7. If you fancy Arsenal win, look at the under 3.5 goals. If you fancy a Villa win, take Watkins to score and Villa to win, which was the story of this game last season. Look at the corners market with Arsenal as ever. It is a bit of a joke, but they do play for them. They are good from them. Scored another blooming corner against Spurs in midweek. 8 corners or more for them. That's the first one that's under double your money. If you feel really brave, look at 10, look at 12. In the game, I'd expect at least 12 corners. And as ever with Arsenal, Gabriel to score or Gabriel to score a header. There's always worth putting money on that.
All right. Well, Gundal says the draw sounds reasonable and an Emery masterclass against his fellow employers. And someone else also, I'll avoid these fixtures. Well, both teams playing also Champions League. Remember, is back. Champions League next week. Sunday games, Everton, Tottenham. This is a tough one. Everton, Moyes' first game was a defeat, 1-0 at home against Aston Villa. Under pressure now because they are only 1 point away from the bottom 3 consecutive defeats without scoring. And we have Tottenham really, really poor. They even suffered in the cup against, what was it, the 5th tier team. They are 13th in the standings. Tom, is only 1 point in the last 5 Premier League games. Is numbers to sack the manager, to be honest.
Yeah, I do think 𝗵𝗫𝗀 is still being given plenty of rope because of the injuries that he's had. I mean, the defense is a joke. He hasn't had the cover. And I do think his tactics and setup and whatnot haven't helped the fact he's had to play Archie Gray, a midfielder who's very young in the back line. The tactics haven't helped, but he's kind of told you he's going to do it. So if you sack someone for doing the thing he said he was going to do, I don't know, you made the wrong decision hiring him, I would suggest. They're not going to go down, Tottenham. I'm going to struggle to re-qualify for Europe, but the whole season is win the Europa League and try and win the Carabao Cup. If they do that and finish 16th, no one's going to care a jot at Tottenham Hotspur about where they finish in the league. It's all about those two trophies. Postecoglou's made that pretty clear, that those are the two focuses of his team. Of course, still in the FA Cup as well, but still early, so we don't quite incorporate that into this conversation just yet. But look, on Everton, horrible home game for David Moyes to start. It wasn't like a lovely dolly fixture against Southampton. It was against a Villa side who we just discussed have been on the up. And what's the big problem for Everton? It's goals scored. This season, 10 home games, 2 victories, 9 goals scored. 4 of them were against Wolves in one game, and 2 of them were scored by Craig Dawson, the Wolves defender, as own goals in that game. So that's the problem. Do they have anyone who can score a goal in the Premier League? And I don't think David Moyes currently has that. Sean Dyche certainly didn't have that. Still no Dwight McNeil, who was so crucial to the whole Dyche project. I think he's going to be pivotal to any success that David Moyes currently has. But, I mean, this is the worst squad that David Moyes would have coached since he took over at Everton 25-odd years ago, whatever it was, 2002. He's got issues defensively. Brentford has had a poor season. 𝐿𝐿𝐼 looks like he's on the turn. Ashley Young's 40 years of age. Mykolenko's been poor. At times, the midfielders look good. At other times, they've struggled. 𝗛𝗏𝗏, too slow. Mangala, good and bad. And offensively, I mean, Dominic Calvert-Lewin hasn't scored a goal now in such a long time. It's, 16 Premier League games without a goal for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. That's insane for a striker in this division. He's a good player, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Is it confidence? I don't know. Is he not getting the service? Probably. But to not score in that amount of time is pretty poor. Armando Broja's injured and probably being sent back to Chelsea. That leaves you Beto, who's not good enough. I mean, if you're going to stay in the league, someone's got to go on a run. And I'm not sure anyone currently at Everton has got the ability to go on a goal-scoring run, and that may well cost them. Tottenham, we discussed their defensive issues, but offensively, they remain strong. They've scored in every game in the last 5, right? Despite the fact they've lost 2 of them. Scored at Arsenal, scored 3 against Tamworth. I know mitigating circumstances, but still did it. Beat Liverpool in the Carabao Cup with the 𝗀𝗏𝗏 goal, scored in the loss against Newcastle, scored 2 against Wolves. They don't lack the ability to score goals, Tottenham Hotspur. That is not their problem. Their problem is defensively, but 43 goals scored is an unbelievable number for a team that are struggling down the bottom of the table. So there's 2 things here I'd look at. Number 1, look at the Tottenham win. 2.51 is quite high. Number 2, I might even look handicap here at minus 1.5 for Tottenham, because Tottenham do 2 things. They lose or they win big. It's about it, really. So if Tottenham win, they're going to win this by 2 or 3 goals. They're going to hammer Everton. If not, low scoring, Everton win or 0-0. So take the draw, take the low scoring draw an Everton double chance. That's one side. The other side's a big Tottenham win. Take the minus handicap.
I like the big Tottenham win. They are the second highest scoring team in the Premier League. As you said, Everton is completely the opposite. Only 15 goals scored. Only Southampton had scored less goals in this Premier League. We have different opinions. Hassan is going for Everton because he thinks they are gonna take them at the counter-attack, and some others like Nuts are trusting Spurs for this game. The odds are very high for both ends, so it's a good game to bet. Next one is Man United Brighton. Also here we have high odds for all the outcomes because it's very difficult to predict this Man United. Imagine that they were this close to drop points even against Southampton on Thursday. They had to wait until the last 10 minutes to see Diallo scoring 3 goals after the success in the Cup against Arsenal and in the league against Liverpool. And Brighton finally got a win, Tom, against Ipswich. They were coming from 4 consecutive draws in the Premier League.
I'm a little bit hoarse this morning because I was working on the Man United game last night, and I've got to tell you, they were absolutely atrocious. Like, really just awful performance. I think dropping Harry Maguire was a mistake in the back line. I think he is the best defender in that trio lineup they're putting together. Lenny Yoro was marmalised by Kamaldeen Sulemana down that wing. And I think the manager was quite late in making the change to take him off. I think Sulemana could have had 4 or 5 goals and probably should have done, and Southampton should have been out of sight. Midfield, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 looked gassed. 𝗀𝗵𝗵𝗏 doesn't look right. Offensively, Rasmus Højlund offers very little going forward. Garnacho, I'm not sure he works in the 3. There's all sorts of issues to solve for Ruben Amorim. And if it wasn't for Amad Diallo, who looked really alive and alert all game, they would have lost to the worst team maybe in Premier League history on Thursday. So incredible, really. I think maybe I'd consider 𝗀𝐽𝐻𝐸 in for Højlund here. I think Maguire's got to come back in. Beyond that, it's as you were in the squad, I think, here. But it was just something missing. I think at the moment, for whatever reason, this lot are getting themselves up for big games and are struggling to find the intensity against the teams they don't care about, and I think that might go to this game as well. In terms of Brighton, victory against Ipswich, I've not been able to watch the game as yet, but I have seen them plenty of times across the season, 10 draws in 21 matches. Very competitive in every game they played, so that's 17 games they've managed to avoid loss in this season. I think with the 7 wins they picked up as well, only 4 defeats all season. Very tough to beat Brighton, and I think Man United will find it very tough here, and I wouldn't fancy United to win. My concerns, as ever with Brighton, are lack of goals might be a bit strong, but I have a bit of concern about João Pedro up front, mainly because in the last couple of weeks, he should have been sent off against Ipswich from the jump into the goalkeeper, should have been sent off against Arsenal. He seems to have lost a little bit of discipline. They don't have that kind of rotation of a fit Danny Welbeck. I know he's just edging his way back in, but I think Welbeck gives them a bit more of a striking option. I think Pedro behind Welbeck looks a better combination. So maybe we'll get to see that here. Danny Welbeck fit. I'm sure he'll be keen to play against his former club. And defensively too, Lewis Dunk has faded a bit this season. Igor has got injured and will miss the rest of the campaign. Adam Webster's been in and out. Just a few concerns about what the Brighton defensive lineup is going to be. But, in 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵 in central midfield, they have maybe one of the most underrated players, or a player having a breakout season in midfield. He's made a massive difference to everything that Brighton do. He brings the energy that Man United are lacking. It's going to be tight, this. I think it's going to be real tight. As I mentioned, the amount of draws Brighton have got. Because of that, you can't avoid the draw at 3.85. They've drawn half their games this season, and Man United don't look particularly creative. You've got to be really good to beat Brighton. I don't think Man United are really good. That leaves me at 3.85. Take that. I was so disappointed by Man United on Thursday. The Brighton win at 3.55 is irresistible as well. 2-0 win at Ipswich. Can they follow that up with a win here? They absolutely can. It was the same Man United we saw lose at home to Newcastle, lose at home to Bournemouth last night. If they don't get going early, Brighton will punish them. And if they get 2-0 up, if they get 1-0 up, I don't think they're going to be able to get back in it. It's the way they did against Southampton. So Brighton win at 3.55. Absolutely take it. 2.1 for Man United is no good. If they're going to win it, it'll be inspired by Amad, as it was on Thursday. Amad to score a Man United win is the only great value here. And if they are to win it, I think look at the group bet: 1-0, 2-0, 2-1.
All right. Well, great odds for Brighton. Many people are taking those odds, like Hassan, like 𝐿𝐴𝐴. The double chance is 1.8 also for Brighton. Great odds. And 𝗀𝗵𝗵𝗏 thinks we are going to see Brighton in the score sheet. It's very likely indeed. So good value on this game, with Man United still very favorites. Next one is, this one is really favorite. Nottingham Forest Southampton, one of the best teams in this Premier League. The biggest surprise, Nottingham Forest, still third in the standings, in great form. Now we should think that they can qualify for the next Champions League. They are 4 points away from Chelsea and no defeat since the 5th of December. And now they host the worst team in the Premier League. So even the odds are not bad, actually, to back Nottingham Forest in this game.
No, I mean, take Forest to win all day. Absolutely at 1.45. That's worth a big lump here. I mean, what a performance against Liverpool in midweek. Chris Wood's goal was fantastic. A classic Nuno Forest goal. The quick passing, the interplay, the movement, the finish, job done, close the shop. And it took a corner and a bit of chaos from a substitution for Liverpool to get back in that game from open play. Sells had an amazing game, but broadly, defensively, Forest were very strong. The goalkeeper is part of that unit, and he made some excellent stops. Look, let's not go too deep into Forest like we do most weeks, how good they are, but defense is good, midfield is good, offense is good, everyone's fit, everyone's flying, everyone's happy. Why wouldn't you back them to win here against the Southampton side who, look, had some excellent moments against a very poor Manchester United on Thursday, but they are statistically on course to be the worst team in Premier League history. I think they're level with Sunderland at this stage from 20-odd years ago, but their goal difference is abysmal. It was minus 36. It'll be minus 38 now, minus 39. I think that Ivan Juric found a team in the first half against Man United on Thursday. Then he made a bunch of changes and killed it. And after that, United grew stronger to bring on the 6'7" Paul 𝐻𝐿𝐻. What do? You've got to go long to him. They won't go long to anyone's head all game. Suddenly they're pumping it up to a striker who's got head like a 50 pence piece. And it totally killed them. Play the team that started against Man United. They've got every chance of being competitive. If they don't, I think they'll get battered out of sight here against a Forest side who haven't won many games big this season, but they have recently thrashed Wolves. At home, they beat West Ham quite comfortably by 3 earlier in the season. 2 at Everton, that they've shown they can score a couple of goals and not just eke out 1-0 victories, which has been the big, can they do that about Forest? And they proved they can. Southampton defensively too. I mean, 𝗷𝗿𝗵𝗿 not up to it. 𝗵𝗵𝗿𝗄, he's 28, he looks 48, can't move. I thought 𝗵𝗵𝗿𝗄 was quite good in the defensive trio, but just so many problems. Aribo and 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐺𝐿𝐻 look okay in midfield, but against Forest's pair, they're going to struggle. They're going to be out full. Take the Forest win. Chris Wood, 13 goals this season, scored against Liverpool. Take him to score and Forest to win. We've won quite a lot of bets on that this season. And I'd also bet against Southampton scoring again. I think it's only 13 goals they've scored in the Premier League this season. They're the lowest scores in the top 5 tiers of English football, Southampton, with just 13, 12 going into Thursday. And that was an own goal, the goal they scored. So Forest win to 0. That doubles your money.
Embarrassing Southampton, indeed. Hassan is saying worse than our beautiful Norwich. Genep is throwing out some names. Boots, of course, Gibbs White and Elanga to score or assist. Very hard not to bet on Nottingham Forest, and this could easily be your safe bet, Tom. Nottingham to win, but we have to wait a little bit to know if it's going to be Forest to win. Next game is Ipswich Man City, with some news around Guardiola and around Haaland. He has extended his contract until 2034, so probably he has absolutely nothing to do for the rest of his life. Congratulations, Haaland. Go and rest and enjoy playing golf, drink, eat, whatever you like in your life, because with a 9 years extension, I've never seen this in football. Usually it's a big mistake to extend the contract to a player for this long, but we will see. Tom, in the meantime, Man City drop points against Bournemouth, but of course they are super favorites against Ipswich, still competing, but still in relegation spots, fighting with Wolves to get out from the bottom 3.
Yeah, look, I mean, the issue with Ipswich this season is that they've not won enough games at Portman Road. Simple as that. Just one victory. That was the shock against Chelsea a couple of weeks ago. You think, oh, they've turned the corner. They're going to start winning games, and they can't beat Fulham. Then they lose against Brighton. It's just not a Premier League squad. I mean, Kieran McKenna's a good coach. I think of any of the promoted teams, they put the best fight up. But you know, if the category involves you being the best of this year's Southampton, this year's Leicester, and I'm not sure what kind of reward that is. But it's going to be them or Wolves or Everton joining the other two in the Championship next season. And the only way to start clawing their way forward is to win home games. Trouble is, if you can't beat Brighton, and how are you going to beat Manchester City? Liam Delap, once of City, doesn't score enough goals. He's a good player. 8's good, but you need to score more because no one else is scoring in this team. Amari Hutchinson, similar sort of story. They've got good players, but they don't have, I think, the required quality to stay in this division. If they were to make it this season, Ipswich, I think there'd be quite a good force next season, actually, because they could convince players to come and play under Kieran McKenna the way he wants to play. I kind of hope they do stay up because I think they've got a lot to offer the Premier League, but this is the season. It's always incredibly tough to survive. Do I think they'd offer more to the Premier League next year than Everton? Yeah. Would they offer more to the Premier League than Wolves next season? Yeah, I think they probably would. But right now, if I was to make a bet, it would be Ipswich to go down. And they concede too many soft goals as well. I mean, that's the concern. That the goals they concede, the way they concede them, you know, I describe them as relegation goals. They're preventable. that's maybe where some investment could come in this January transfer window. Someone to play alongside Greaves at centre-half. Someone better than Kalvin Phillips to protect the defence. That's what I'd be looking at, because they can nick a goal here and there, which they've shown this season. Scored against Fulham and Chelsea and City and a lot of big teams this year. In terms of Man City, I don't really buy into the fact they've turned the corner. They weren't great against Leicester. They weren't great against West Ham. Salford is irrelevant. And against Brentford at 2-0 up, they crumbled. Defensively struggling. Offensively still, Kevin De Bruyne is struggling to get to 90 minutes. Haaland stopped scoring, though it is a positive. Phil Foden scored a couple of goals against Brentford in midweek, because he's had a really anonymous nothing season for a player who's arguably the most talented English player, maybe the most talented player in this division. Done nothing for months on end. I don't know why that is. And maybe those 2 goals, the first goal was a beautiful cushion volley. Maybe this will turn his season around. A great Phil Foden, and City will skyrocket up the table. If that doesn't happen, who knows where they'll finish. Maybe they'll enjoy winning the Conference League next year. Who knows? But look, you can't go on Ipswich because of the record I mentioned, just 1 home win. City have won 2 of their last 3 league games. I think City win this quite comfortably. So take the City win at 1.37. Look at your handicap market as well. Scoring goals again, 2 against Leicester, 4 against West Ham, 8 Salford, 2 Brentford. At least 2 goals here. And minus 1.5 for City at 1.98 is actually not bad, considering what we've had for the last 5 years at City. You could even look minus 2.5 if you fancy. But I think at least 2 for City here. So look at 2 goals or more scored.
All right, we are waiting for the new signings for Man City in this winter transfer window. Can Nats thinks the odds for Man City are really poor, and Hassan also is going for a hat-trick for Haaland. Omar Masmouche to score. This is for Frankfurt, and actually Ronan was right in the midweek games with Eintracht still scoring. And the last game on Monday is Chelsea Wolves. When we thought Chelsea might fight for the Premier League, no. Less games for them, 2 consecutive draws against Bournemouth or Crystal Palace. So now even they are out of the Champions League spots. Wolverhampton Wanderers, they are still in the mix for the relegation. 2 consecutive defeats, 3-0 to Nottingham Forest, 3-0 to Newcastle. It's true that both teams were really informed, Tom.
Yeah, this is so tricky, this one. This might be the toughest game of the entire weekend, and maybe it shouldn't be, because Chelsea were so good before the Christmas period. But it's worth noting, and I'm going to look more into this today, Leicester last season in the Championship under Enzo Maresca really struggled over December and January, and then they regrouped in February and pushed on from there. Maybe it's something about the amount of games. Maybe it's something about the rotation. I mean, the rotation he did against Ipswich to lose that game was ridiculous. Like, if you're trying to win the Premier League title, and he kept saying they weren't, which became a self-fulfilling prophecy, you don't change the entire team against anyone. You go and win every single game, and you rest against real kind of low-grade opposition. If they had Salford or something, sure. And in the Conference League, they can do it. They shouldn't have done that many rotations, and it cost them against Ipswich. Lesson learned from Maresca, maybe. But there's still positives about Chelsea. They still score so many goals. 41 goals scored this season. It's a phenomenal amount of goals. Even in this little run where they haven't been winning, scored a couple against Bournemouth, 5 against Morecambe, 1 against Palace, 1 against Fulham. They can always score goals. The issue is that the back line, the Caicedo at right back thing, which looked a masterstroke in November, looks a bit of a fumble come January, gave a penalty away in the Bournemouth game, I think it was. Got to get him back into midfield alongside Caicedo. Romeo Lavia is never fit, and so you can't build a team around him. So get Caicedo and Enzo back together again in central midfield. And defensively, I do think they think Wesley Fofana is their best defender, but he comes back and he's out again for months. I think you've got to cut your losses there. And whoever they've got in goal, is it Jorgensen? Is it Robert Sanchez? They make mistakes. They've got error-prone goalkeepers, and that's cost them plenty of times this season as well. But still Cole Palmer scoring goals and looking fantastic. Some doubts about Nicholas Jackson, made a few misses recently, but still been excellent in the round this season. But in the micro, had a bit of a dodgy run. In terms of Wolves, they have spent at the back during this this transfer window, which was required. But bring a new centre-half in, concede 3 goals against Newcastle. What does that tell you? I don't know. Their entire season relies on 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐻 𝐶UNHA firing them out of it. That's it. That's what they've got. 10 Premier League goals this season from 𝐿𝐴𝐻 𝐶UNHA. Had a great run against Newcastle at 2-0 down in midweek. And if you just hit the target from like 30 yards, everything changes. He is their outstanding player. He is their best player, and everything needs to be built around getting 𝐿𝐭𝐤𝐻 the ball in dangerous scenarios. If they do that, they have every chance of scoring. They have pulled off some great wins, Wolves, this season. It feels weird to say that, but you think about the win at Fulham, which was maybe one of the performances of the season, the win against Manchester United in this particular run. They are able to score, and they are able to do something unexpected. I think if it wasn't for their diabolical start to this season, they'd be comfortably in that pack with Palace and West Ham and Man United. They've had bad seasons, but not catastrophic seasons. I'd still back Wolves to stay up, but it's unexpected points now that's going to get them over the line, because where they've expected to pick up points, they haven't done it for the majority of this season. So how's this game going to go? I find the draw absolutely irresistible at 6.4. Chelsea have drawn their last 2 league games. Wolves have been able to draw Tottenham in recent times and have found a way to stay in games. Look, I know they were thrashed in their last 2 Premier League games, but Chelsea just leave their back door open. And if Chelsea go 1-0 up, would you be convinced 𝐿𝐭𝐤𝐻 can't score? No. I think there's every chance he nicks one. Draw at 6.4 is crazy. If you fancy a Chelsea win, you do what I say every week. 14 goals this season. Palmer scores and Chelsea win. That gets you near double your money, but screams draw here.
Yeah, and perhaps a lot of goals here, 2-2 or something like this. Both teams to score. Yes, for sure. Bam is telling us, and it's true. The schedule for Wolves is frightening. After Chelsea, they have Arsenal, Aston Villa, and Liverpool. So they might see themselves in a month's time with still 16 points and really struggling to stay in the Premier League when the good weather comes to the Great Britain. Tom, let's finish the video. Before this, of course, I want to let you know that you can post your own tips in Oddspedia and participate in our tipster competitions, including the Premier League one. We have a special one for the Premier League fans. You can win up to €1,000, which is not bad. And what is even better is completely for free to participate. And as well, we have Rivals, the new feature where you can create your own tipster competition with your friends, rivals like Arsenal and Tottenham. Tom, let's go with your safe bet. Someone mentioned before Nottingham Forest to win.
I was so tempted. I really, really was. But I think Man City going to Ipswich has got to be the safe bet here at 1.37. I just still don't have the confidence in Nottingham Forest, and I was just kind of impressed by Southampton on Thursday. So I was coming in, when I wrote this yesterday, I was going to say Forest, but having seen Southampton, even though I think Forest will win, I think City are safe to go to Ipswich, who have won only 1 home game this season, and pick up victory.
Against Chelsea, indeed. And the 𝐿𝐿𝐴?
3 teams this week, but I'm really spicing it up sexy. So Newcastle win against Bournemouth on Newcastle's form. I think they're going to win. City, as I've mentioned, I think you're going to go to Ipswich and pick up a victory there. You throw in Liverpool to win at Brentford, but both teams to score, which has happened in most games that Brentford have played this season. Only 1 game in the Premier League this season they haven't scored at home. That was the loss against Newcastle. You throw that into 4.94 for 3 favourites and a likely outcome. Love it.
We like sexy, Tom. I'm sexy and I know it. Well, Tom, thank you. Thanks, everyone, for watching all over the world. See you next week with the Premier League. Bye-bye.